Good morning, everyone. This is Saturday, September 19th, and we are meeting virtually as the Shawnigan Rotary Eco Club. And our special guest today from the Take a Hike Youth Mental Health Foundation is Zoe Lauckner. And we're so excited to have you today, Zoe, and to talk about the work that you're doing, not only in BC, but I understand you have some news for us that the program is growing beyond Vancouver Island, beyond British Columbia, and we just look forward to the impact that this will have on youth who need this option and need to make connections with people outdoors and be empowered to grow and to thrive. So that fits very well with who we are as a Rotary Club. In Rotary, we represent the first eco club in Canada, and I would like to share a bit of information about us before we get started and let you know what's coming up in our calendar. So let me share my screen. And let's jump to our website first. So we welcome you at Shawnigan Rotary Eco Club. We're based in Shawnigan Lake on Vancouver Island. And we typically meet once in a while for topics like this. And we also meet doing projects, hands-on projects around the community. Coming up next week, we have our World Cleanup Day where we're actually walking around Shawnigan Lake and we're on the map to make a visible difference in our community. So please join us for that. And you can go to our website for more information. I'm going to start our introduction of our speaker now. So welcome to the meeting today. If you're reviewing this as a recording, we invite you to connect with us and to pause or learn more so that you can ask questions of our speaker today. Here in Rotary, we ask ourselves the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I gratefully acknowledge in speaking today that I'm coming from this land where the traditional custodians of Shawelican, the Hulkaminam speaking peoples, hunted and gathered in this area. And we respect their caring connections to each other and the places where we live, work, and play. Normally in our Zoom meetings, we invite you to participate by using the chat, raising your hand if there's something that's not clear, because we're listening, asking questions, and taking notes. And according to Rotary International's president this year, his theme is creating hope in the world. And that theme changes every year. So we are so pleased to present this topic and welcome Zoe, who is the manager of philanthropy for Vancouver Island for the takeahikefoundation.org. So here in Shawnigan, we take a hike often. We are at the Trestle, we are at the top of Mount Baldy, and we facilitate connections by bringing groups together. We believe that leadership and a sign of good leadership is to create space, make space for people to learn together using their experiences. So we applaud the ongoing work and the exciting groundbreaking work of the Historical Society at the museum expansion. And we look forward to being part of that when it opens in 2025 and early 2026. During the pandemic, our community exhibited tremendous resilience. And many of these groups had to operate virtually, but together we are strong, and the Rotary Club has a place by bringing all these voices together. And at our YouTube channel, you can see a lot more of the discussions that we've had. So we're always welcoming new members. We bring our talents to the table, as we say in Rotary, and together we can accomplish things for our community, changing ourselves and changing the world. So these are some of the outdoor projects and themes that we have, particularly the cleanups as you gathered, but we also want to plant for pollinators and support nature in every way we can by leaving no trace and championing preservation of land so that people can learn and grow and thrive in those natural spaces. So together we inspire. This is the view from some of the summer camps on the west side, looking at Mount Baldy and Shawnigan Lake. And here's some of our members at work beautifying Shawnigan and supporting the pollinators. So we are people of action in Rotary, and we invite you to connect with us, because if you think just as a single person you're too small to make a difference, together we can change the world with these projects and our stories of resilience, hope, and inspiration. So please do follow us online. Check out our website for a good news feed of what's happening in the world in terms of environmental advocacy. And we invite you to connect further. So thank you. And back to you, Zoe. You now have the floor.
Thank you so much, Kim. That was lovely. It is so wonderful to see such a profoundly effective group happening in my home community of Shawnigan Lake. I love that representation there. Just going to share my screen with you all, and then we will begin. So I really want to thank you so much, Kim, for inviting me here, and for everybody watching for taking the time to spend this time together and learn a little bit about Take a Hike. You can see my screen okay?
Yes, we are good to go.
Okay. Well, yes, thank you so much for allowing me to be here this morning and to share the work of Take a Hike with you all. I know that your time is a valuable gift, and I appreciate you being so generous in watching and learning with us today. So my name is Zoe Lauckner. I am the manager of philanthropy for Vancouver Island with Take a Hike Youth Mental Health Foundation. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a fourth generation uninvited settler here on Turtle Island, more specifically, second generation here in Cowichan. So before we dive in, I would just like to start by acknowledging on behalf of Take a Hike, the land on which our programs operate as the unceded traditional and ancestral territories of the Coast and Interior Salish peoples. This land is home to many diverse Indigenous people, and we honor their connection to the lands, oceans, and rivers. Now, it's important for us at Take a Hike to advance reconciliation because of the strength Indigenous peoples bring to our communities, and also because many Take a Hike youth identify as Indigenous. It's important for us to take time and understand their experience and our role as their allies to creating a safe and inclusive environment for these youth. So to begin this morning, I invite you to pause for a minute and just reflect on a time during your youth when you were struggling. Being a teenager is tough. You're growing into who you want to be. There are all these other things happening around you, and not all of them are good. Maybe you're having a hard time making friends. Maybe you're being bullied. Maybe you're feeling isolated. I think regardless of where we come from or who we are, youth is a time of challenge and trepidation. So whatever experience is coming to mind for you now, I invite you to imagine layering on more challenges: mental health, substance use, perhaps involvement with the foster care system, extreme poverty, housing insecurity, or neglect. These are the complicated life experiences of the youth who join Take a Hike. So I really encourage you to keep those experiences in mind as we move through this presentation today, and consider what you or what someone else, perhaps a youth in your life, might have needed as a teen to get through those times, and to not just survive, but to thrive as a youth and later in life as an adult, and perhaps how Take a Hike could have helped. So who we are. Take a Hike empowers youth who experience vulnerabilities to change the trajectory of their lives with a full-time mental health and emotional well-being program embedded inside an alternate education classroom. So we engage youth with intentional, continuous clinical counseling, outdoor experiential learning, and community. Our public school district partners provide high-quality education, and together, we are stronger together. We empower youth with the skills and resilience they need to graduate high school, build healthy relationships, and achieve success, however they define that. So youth attend 5 days a week from September to June, just like any other regular schooling program, in a cohort with class sizes determined by the school district which they serve. So typically around 20 youth, although some of our programs have expanded to be more than 30. Each classroom is staffed with a teacher, a youth and family worker, and a mental health clinician, as well as an adventure-based specialist. And those mental health clinicians are always registered clinical counselors. These are folks with incredible expertise who are really bringing their skills to the table in this interdisciplinary team. So these are what you see on the screen here. These are the 4 pillars in which we base our work. And I'll share more about these shortly, but they are mental health, academics, adventure, and community. But first, I want to talk a little bit about why Take a Hike is needed. And it'll be no surprise to anybody watching that we're living through a mental health crisis. 70% of adults living with mental health illness today, mental health challenges, today, saw their symptoms emerge before they turned 18. And yet as kids, only 1 in 7 will actually get the mental health support that they need. And all of this was kind of prior to the pandemic. So as you can imagine, post-pandemic, things have gotten much more dire. And the BC Children's Hospital recently published a study that showed since the pandemic, since it started, 2 out of 3 school-aged children have or are experiencing mental health challenges, things from anxiety, depression, all the way to suicidal ideation. So interestingly, and something that we really focus on at Take a Hike is that school connectedness is the #1 determinant of youth mental health. This is more so than family or friends. And so this is really what we ground our work in, is making sure that that school connectedness is at the forefront. And vulnerable youth who, more than anything, need a nurturing, stable, and safe environment where they can unlock their unique gifts and talents and develop the self-confidence and relationship skills that will serve them throughout their lives, often don't have access to that kind of environment at home or at school. And many don't find that stability or safety in those places. So our education system, which is designed for the majority, unfortunately sometimes leaves the vulnerable behind. And this is where we work. I'm enjoying the early morning sun streaming through and warming me up as we go through here. Just taking a moment to pause and look outside. We live in such a beautiful area. And with community and adventure and nature being such a part of our work, it's nice to pause and reflect on those moments. I want to talk a little bit about the youth that we serve at Take a Hike. You know, I grew up in Shawnigan Lake, as Kim mentioned in my intro there, and you know, in the early 90s in Shawnigan Lake, I think things have changed a lot. I've visited that community since. There's lots happening. It seems like there's lots of activities for youth, but there wasn't a lot of wholesome things for youth to do when I was growing up in that area. And it was quite easy for us to kind of fall through the cracks and get into trouble and do those kinds of things and really experience a lot of vulnerabilities, especially living quite rurally at that time. And so when I talk about and reflect on the youth that Take a Hike supports, I see a lot of myself and a lot of my peers from that time in my life in the kids that we're able to support now. And you know, whether these are youth that you know or youth that you've seen, the reality is within all communities on Vancouver Island and across the province, there's probably a lot more youth struggling than is known. And so we serve youth who are experiencing vulnerabilities grades 10 to 12, so generally between the ages of 15 to 18, who are really struggling to succeed in the mainstream school system and are at risk of leaving before graduating. So just totally disengaging from the general school system. Program participants are capable and motivated young people who are facing barriers such as mental health challenges, behavioral challenges, substance use, or sometimes risky behavior patterns such as involvement in crime. But these vulnerabilities at such a critical stage of development really affect the way that young people remember, attend, learn, and make decisions. If you've ever had that fight or flight response of being scared or and then you sit down and try and do a math test when your whole nervous system is in that state, you can imagine how difficult it would be. And that's the reality of a lot of the youth that we're supporting, is there's just a lot of emotions and a lot of physiological reactions happening that really make attending and learning really, really difficult, if not impossible. So of our program participants this last year, just a few statistics to share with you. We had 87% were coming from families experiencing significant financial need. 3 out of 4 had a special education designation. 69% had diagnosed mental health concerns or emerging issues that were yet to be diagnosed. 19% were currently or previously in foster care. And you can see here that 33% had previously been youth in care. And so that foster care piece is quite significant across the community. We see different levels of involvement with the ministry there. A third had been suspended from school in the past. And this stat up on the screen, when we talk about ACEs, 93% of youth that Take a Hike have 3 or more adverse childhood experiences. And that is it's kind of a clinical rating scale on how to determine the level of someone's level childhood experiences. So how kind of traumatic ultimately these experiences have been. And it's really a way of kind of determining the level of support that youth are needed. And so when we have 93% having 3 or more, which is significant, just gives you a bit of a picture in terms of what kind of challenges the youth that we're supporting are really dealing with. And we actually know, interestingly, that youth on Vancouver Island are even more likely than their peers across the province to experience mental health issues, face poverty and housing insecurity, skip classes, not graduate, or go on to post-secondary school. So our program actually reaches far beyond the youth that we serve directly in order to serve their families. We know that healing extends to community. We know how important it is for youth when they do find that safe space at school to be able to have that when they return home. But we also serve school districts and greater communities in terms of the support. And I want to share that kind of a picture of that, an example of that, and talk a little bit more about our pillars by telling you a story about one of our program youth, Dylan. So Dylan is an Indigenous youth who, like all youth in our programs, experiences a number of vulnerabilities, including intergenerational trauma, very complex home life with housing and food insecurity. Dylan often doesn't feel safe at home or know where they might get their next meal. So as a result of these adversities that they faced, Dylan's understandably developed some not super healthy coping strategies, and some mental health and behavioral challenges have emerged as well. So those coping mechanisms include things like substance use, some acting out, skipping school. And unfortunately, before joining Take a Hike, Dylan didn't really have the opportunity or access to trusted adults that they could talk to and address some of the issues that they were facing, which is very common in the youth that we serve. So the youth in our programs have access to a fully embedded mental health clinician inside the classroom, as I mentioned. And that mental health clinician provides over 300 hours of individual, group, and family clinical counseling. So for many youth like Dylan, Take a Hike is often the first encounter with mental health services, or at least most often their first positive encounter. So this particular component of the program has been absolutely transformational for Dylan. They came to the program very closed off, very guarded for their own safety, understandably so. But over time, the counselor slowly developed a bond with Dylan through regular check-ins while out in nature, walking alongside, really letting them lead where the conversation goes and how much they want to share, building that trust over time. And eventually that really encouraged them to open up. So at the end of the school year, we went back and asked Dylan, how did you find going to counseling for the first time? That's a big deal. How was that experience? And they said, I didn't go to counseling. What are you talking about? And then we asked, well, how was it chatting with Liam every day, right? The mental health clinician in the classroom. And Dylan's response was, oh, Liam, I talk to him every day. He's helped me so much. He's helped me and my mom work our relationship out. He's just been amazing. And so without really noticing it, I think what this story really demonstrates is that, when you think about clinical counseling or mental health counseling, it's you sitting across a room face to face with somebody, perhaps the walls are white, like it can be very clinical and very vulnerable. And there's an inherent power dynamic there and all of these pieces that really for you, a lot of youth prevent them from ever wanting to seek that kind of support. So when that support is embedded inside your classroom where you're already attending, and it's somebody who's able to just hold a non-judgmental safe space for you consistently over a long period of time to show you that they're going to be there no matter what comes up. They're not going to turn their back on you. It's safe to share. And then bringing that component out in nature, because we know it's a lot easier to talk about hard things when you're not staring someone straight in the eyes. And also when you're exerting some physical energy and you're letting a little bit of your guard down and doing that. It's also a trust building exercise to be out doing some, big hikes with lots of people. And so I think sometimes in those moments when mental health clinicians and one particular youth are able to kind of go off together and have those experiences of opening up and learning that that's safe, we're able to really build relationship and encourage that kind of healing and growth that's at the core of our work. So I think it probably seems impossible to many of us living on Vancouver Island with the incredible outdoor experiences available. But many youth, including Dylan, had never actually been outside of their community or taken part in outdoor activities prior to joining Take a Hike. At first, Dylan had a lot of uncertainty and anxiety about spending time outside. As you can imagine, convincing a whole bunch of youth to leave their cell phones behind and go on a big hike up Baldy Mountain, for example, there's some groans and grunts, but we get through it. But Dylan was nervous about the lack of safety and familiarity. They were also not looking forward to having to give up their phone, which is quite common. I think we all know youth these days. I think a lot of adults are like that too. This is just the world that we live in. But the reality is that once youth get outside and start experiencing that, connect with nature and connect with themselves, connect with their peers in a good way, it's the phone is an absolute afterthought. So we really help youth find their way by immersing them in the classroom of the natural world. Time in nature has a profound restorative, connective, and transformational power that serves as the foundation to our program pillars. And it's really tailored for each individual, their distinct experiences and innate talents. We integrate land-based learning activities to facilitate learning and therapy and provide a safe space for expression and risk-taking. So maybe you've never been on a big hike before. Maybe you've never gone kayaking. Maybe you've never gone on a tall ship sailing expedition. But being able to be surrounded by adults that you trust, who are experienced, to be experiencing that with your peers who are in the same situation as you, right? Building that kind of camaraderie and bond in facing a challenge like that, overcoming a challenge like that, learning and growing together, as you can imagine, is quite profound and impactful. So our actual program involves one full day field trip each week. And I can say locally, I have access to the transportation schedule and I get to see where the Couch program is going. And certainly they've, hiked Baldy Mountain and explored Goldstream Park and have been all around Shawnigan Lake. We have incredible trail systems here, as you all know. And so really the program, we're so lucky on Vancouver Island to be able to take advantage of these incredible outdoor and natural landscapes and experiences. So the one-day field trips are often to an area kind of locally, but then we also have 2 multi-day wilderness trips each year that range between 3 and 10 days, depending on the student's grade level and the season, of course. Activities are diverse and range from hiking, paddling, biking, climbing, to snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, and ice skating. At the end of the school year, youth will have spent over 300 hours in nature, which is absolutely incredible. And yeah, everyone in Shawnigan Rotary is, we know firsthand how important it is, especially in this digital age when we're all so, our tendency is to be really isolated. It's amazing how, with our devices, we can feel so connected to so many people and yet so lonely, right? And so I think getting out into nature and reconnecting with land and with community is just such a profoundly healing experience. And then to have that coupled with some gentle facilitation from mental health clinicians and the support of that team is just absolutely profound. So within this land-based work, we also integrate Indigenous ways of knowing and being, and invite elders to join us to teach Indigenous practices and land acknowledgement, and really going on out trips provided Dylan and youth like Dylan, it really provides opportunities to get out of their head, approach learning in new hands-on ways, build resilience and confidence, and for Dylan also spend some time reconnecting to their Indigenous heritage. So that's our land-based activity. That's one of our pillars, and it is fun. I live in Glenora area, and so our Couch program, which I'll share a little bit more about, is quite close by, and I get invited on out days, and those youth are resilient hikers, I'll tell you. They leave me in their dust sometimes. They're incredible. So this is another one of our program pillars, which is academics. So as I mentioned before, coming to take a hike, Dylan was really struggling in the mainstream school system. They didn't enjoy classes. They were not really doing well academically. They thought they were stupid because school wasn't working for them. Take a Hike youth, really, they take all the courses that they need to graduate high school while in this immersive program. So the interdisciplinary classroom team develops personalized learning plans for each individual student with support from school district partners here in the Cowichan Valley, of course, that's School District 79, and really ensure that youth receive more time, attention, and encouragement than most schools can simply afford to do. So small class sizes of 12 to 20 youth also allow for a community feeling in a safe and inclusive environment. So for Dylan, this meant new ways of learning and leadership opportunities to support their peers. Dylan really thrived in learning courses like math and physics and English. He thrived learning those topics in unique hands-on ways out in nature and not just in the classroom, right? So really exploring different ways of learning. But through their experience in the classroom, Dylan decided that they actually love supporting their peers so much that they want to work towards applying to a youth justice program upon graduation, which is really exciting. Another absolutely important and integral component to our program pillars is community. And this is where you all come in, because as we know, that phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it really takes a community to help youth grow up to be resilient, well-rounded, healthy individuals who feel connected to community, who feel supported by community, and who therefore are inspired to give back and be involved in community. So I think this really comes full circle. And like many youth in our programs, Dylan thought they were stupid. This is the message that they had received, whether, covertly or overtly throughout their young life. They didn't think they had anything of value to contribute and often hadn't been told any different or weren't expected to succeed. So this is the messaging. This is before we started this recording, Kim and I were talking about internal voices. And this is the reflection of the internal voice of this young person is, I'm not going to succeed. I have nothing to contribute. Well, why would I get out of bed in the morning and go to school? Why would I do this hard thing? Right? I'm going to do the things that, maybe quiet that inner voice a little bit so I can have a little bit of peace, which often for young people and adults is turning to substances, turning to things that help to numb that voice and numb that pain. But every week at Take a Hike, youth engage in service learning and volunteering in community in the spirit of giving back in gratitude for the support that they've received. So through this volunteer work, youth also experience firsthand the value of service, which I know in Rotary we all can appreciate, the value of service and the impact that they can make on community. So one example is our Nanaimo program. They've adopted Beach Estates Park and spend time every week cleaning it up, removing invasive species and planting native species. And it's really through this kind of service learning that Dylan has been able to receive validation and realizing the value of their contributions to community. And that's often reflected in, just people walking by when you're there cleaning up the park and thanking them, and just being seen as a young people giving back, as a young person giving back, I think is deeply validating and encourages that behavior to continue, of course. So each program also engages in community involvement led by local volunteers who support youth with program activities. This is both outdoors and in the classroom. And those volunteers can really act as mentors, tutors, and even guest speakers from time to time. So these local volunteers help youth realize they're surrounded by safe and caring adults. It's not just the adults in the classroom. There are adults in the community, in the broader community, who are safe and caring, even if that hasn't been their experience in their younger years. They're out there, they see you, they want to be a part of your community and support you. And that's really where the service learning piece comes in and the volunteer component. Because having safe and caring adults around that you can trust really shows you that you belong to a community that cares about you and can support you. And that's a powerful feeling. I think we all know, especially over the last few years, we've all really felt deeply how knowing that there's a community around you can give you a sense of belonging. So having community volunteers in the program as well really helped Dylan to develop more safe relationships with adults and see their place in a community that wants to support them. Dylan now has a mentor that's supporting their journey towards youth justice work. So it's all becomes intertwined in a really beautiful way. The last component of our program, while it's not a formal pillar, it's one of the most important things, and really is the when you take all the theory and everything away, this is the foundation of our work. Our work could not exist and succeed without this component, and that is relationships. Relationships build connection and belonging and are truly at the heart of our program and our community. Our staff teams understand the importance of developing safe and caring relationships with youth and with each other, and really role modeling that in the program. And really want to create an environment that is safe and predictable before any other work takes place. So that's something that we focus quite a bit on, especially it's the start of a new school year. We're entering week 2 of a new school year. So Take a Hike in Cowichan is welcoming new students. We had 2 students graduate last year. So there's 2 new students coming into the program this year. And the most important thing is to demonstrate that there is a safe and predictable environment that every day, each and every day, you're going to be coming into. And that's, as we talked about earlier, really is the basis to building trust and building relationship to even allow youth to start opening up about what's really going on. And that process takes time. So before anything else takes place, we establish that there is trust and predictability and consistency in these programs and in these rooms with staff and with their peers. Staff also understand the importance of modeling those relationships with each other, right? And so how staff conflict, how they do conflict together, how they treat each other, how they speak to each other, how they support each other is witnessed. And so that role modeling becomes very, very important as well. And for many youth, the reality is that Take a Hike sometimes offers the first healthy and safe relationship with an adult that they've ever had. So as you can imagine, it takes some time for youth to trust that that is real, that that's going to stay, and to open up and share. So this was especially important for Dylan coming into the program. Home had really never been a place of stability for them. And, you know, a little story that I think is really demonstrates the power of trust and relationship is quite early when Dylan was involved with Take a Hike, early when they came into the program. They were walking to program one morning and came across somebody getting arrested by the RCMP on the road. And as Dylan kind of got closer, they realized that that person being arrested was their dad. And so having seen that, and as you can imagine, all the emotions and thoughts and feelings and everything going through a young person's body and mind in that moment, you can imagine that it would have been easy for Dylan to go and lean on the coping patterns, the coping mechanisms that they had developed in the past. So substance use, right? Not going to school, avoidance, all of these things. Dylan felt overwhelmed and ashamed and scared and angry, they shared with us later. But instead of running off and doing those things that we know would be detrimental to their health and their well-being, Dylan continued on to school and chose to talk to Liam, who was the mental health clinician in that classroom, and get support. So, you know, I think this is something that's really, I mean, this Take a Hike is very unique. We're the only program in Canada that has an embedded mental health clinician in the classroom with this outdoor land-based learning component. And for those of you who have tried to access mental health support for yourself, or perhaps for a young person in your life, you'll know that it's not an easy feat. Even if you have good coverage, which removes a financial barrier, it's really difficult to get into a clinician, especially if you're in crisis. So for Dylan in this instance, they were able to go into the classroom and immediately pull that mental health clinician aside and say, I need some support, this is going on. And you really can't get that anywhere else. Then this is also working with a clinician who you already have a relationship with in a safe space, with youth, with peers who get it and who can give that time. And so that was a really pivotal moment for the program, I think, in working with this particular youth to see that that's a huge behavior change. You didn't just go to the easy coping mechanisms that you've developed. You came and you're here and you're sitting in it and you're being present with us and vulnerable and talking about it. So I think that's a really, really amazing demonstration of the power of trust and relationship there. You know, another amazing example of the success of that relationship building in the program is how many referrals we get through family members. So Dylan, for example, they've been in the program for 2 years and have found so much value in the program that they've referred their younger sibling in and encouraged them to join. And this actually happens a lot, whether it's friends or siblings or peers. Youth are out there talking about the difference this program has made in their lives, and we just absolutely love that. So yeah, we'd love to see that. I'm going to share with you a little bit about the outcome of our program. Because our distinctive approach really integrates clinical therapy supports while also immersing youth in that nature-based programming. And this approach helps youth learn self-empowerment, positive coping mechanisms, and skills that deliver invaluable capacity for resilience that we all need to navigate volatility and turbulence in our lives. No one's life is going to be without some kind of challenge. I have a 6-year-old, and I often, when we talk about emotions and we talk about riding the waves of emotions, and it's like you want to become a good sailor or surfer, or whatever metaphor you want to use, because there are going to be waves all the time. Sometimes maybe the waters are calm. Sometimes maybe there's little white caps, and sometimes you're going to feel like there's a really big tsunami coming on, and how you ride that wave. You know, are you riding it in as calm and centered a way as possible, but still in touch with your emotions? Or are you creating conflict in relationships, threatening relationships? You can choose whether you make that storm bigger or if you ride it out. And so really, when we talk about giving youth the skills that they need in order to navigate those waters of life now and in the future, that's really what we're focused on. So youth may choose after the program next to turn to higher education or embark on a meaningful career path, but whatever the journey of their lives, wherever that may take them, Take a Hike leaves a powerful positive impact for them, for their families, and for the community. So even during the 2021 to 2022 school year, where the pandemic was disproportionately impacting youth and really exacerbating their challenges, Take a Hike youth reported that they actually saw a positive improvement in their lives, including across all of our programs. 85% identified as seeing their mental health and well-being increase, which is absolutely amazing. 85% during that time has seen an increase in those areas. And 91% of youth achieved their goal of high school graduation, which is absolutely amazing. We do see on average a 92% graduation rate, which I've done some research across different school districts in the province. Because Take a Hike is embedded in alternate education, it is a little bit different than mainstream schooling. And generally, the graduation stats for just general, non-Take a Hike alternate education classrooms is anywhere between 30 and 50% graduation rates. So when you're seeing these stats of a 92% graduation rate across these programs, we can see how it's not just youth coming out being more resilient and more better able to handle the emotional challenges of life, but the academic excellence that is achieved, the fact that we're increasing graduation rates exponentially, I think really speaks to how this unique model brings all of these pieces together to support youth in a very holistic way. We have this is something that I think is unique and also amazing at Take a Hike, is we have quite a sophisticated theory of change. The work that we do isn't based on opinion or individual approach. It's a very cohesive, thoughtful, evidence-based, trauma-informed approach to the youth that we work with. So through this integrated approach, staff are really intentional in their work with youth to ensure that youth experience the 5 core elements that comprise the foundation of our effectiveness in our program. So the first is safe and caring relationships. Safe and caring relationships. A safe and predictable environment. Individualized and responsive support. Relationship continuity through shared time and learning among staff and youth. And lastly, the belief that all youth can succeed and that what constitutes success is individually determined. For some youth, success is graduating. For some youth, success is just getting out of bed in the morning or living until tomorrow. It's very subjective how we define that. And so we really want to bring that forward as well in our conversations. And so really through embracing all that Take a Hike has to offer, youth can make positive changes and experience growth in their knowledge, their skills, their attitudes, and their values in these 4 areas of development. So we focus on the mind, we have academic development, we have the heart, social and emotional well-being, we have the body, the physical well-being, and then the spirit, a spiritual well-being. And I think it's important to note in Take a Hike, spirituality is really viewed from an Indigenous perspective. Spirituality can be defined as how people understand the world and how humans should be in the world. There's a quote that we like to share that's one's spirituality is the inner resource that facilitates knowing oneself, one's surroundings, and finding meaning for oneself in connection and relation to those surroundings. So you can see how this is an integral element to really, as you're making your mind healthier and your body healthier and reflecting inward and being invited to reflect and share with others, there's a spiritual component of, as that quote shares, you're getting to know yourself and yourself in relation to your community, to your peers, to your family. And that's quite powerful. So these areas really support the development of the whole person. That's the mind, body, soul, spirit. And Take a Hike believes that every youth has a different life path. We're all on a different journey, but alongside each other often. But no matter what that path may hold, the long-term goal for every student is to become resilient young adults with the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values that they need to face and overcome life's challenges and really engage fully in life. We're not looking for survival. A lot of the youth that we have worked with have been in survival mode most of their lives. We're looking to support thriving now and in the future. So while I'm going to talk a little bit about Take a Hike on Vancouver Island, but I just want to make a note here that Take a Hike started in Vancouver in the year 2000. So we're coming up to our 25th anniversary now. And because we've had programs existing for quite a while, we do have just beautiful longitudinal data in terms of following Take a Hike alumni to see where life has taken them. And as I mentioned, in the long term, our goal is really for alumni to become resilient individuals with the skills that they need to navigate challenges of life beyond Take a Hike. And so when we look back at our alumni surveys and we connect with youth who have been through the program, what we find is 70% have gone on to post-secondary education. These are kids who weren't supposed to graduate, who never thought that they would graduate. And here they are going on to post-secondary education. We saw 90% of Take a Hike alumni are gainfully employed. 95% continued to see those positive impacts in mental health and really felt like they had the tools that they needed to navigate challenges. And we saw zero involvement with police. So, what? Anyone who's lived in the Cowichan Valley or any community, I think on the island or across the province has probably seen the long-term cost of unmanaged mental health. We see it on the streets every day, right? I think a lot of what we're seeing now is really the result of this upstream preventative work not happening for many decades. And so the long-term cost of unmanaged youth mental health is well documented, both for individuals and societies. Same with the cost of not graduating high school, actually. I think most of us can kind of deduce what opportunities are like if you drop out, for example. They're not great. So many young people will still not get the treatment they need to overcome these challenges. Many will end up in emergency rooms, involved in the justice system, or face homelessness. And these devastating consequences really impact people's lives, relationships, jobs, and a lot more. So something that I really appreciate Take a Hike having done, and I think is just so fascinating, is really looking at the broader social impact of this work. And so to kind of quantify that, Take a Hike worked with an organization called PwC and conducted a social impact, social return on investment study. And what that study showed is that for every dollar invested in Take a Hike, broader society recognizes a return of between $5.60 and $13.40 each year. And so this is through participants' increased contribution to society and reduced reliance on health and social support. So we have less hospital visits. We have youth who are graduating high school, becoming business owners, going to post-secondary, becoming employees, giving back to the economy. And so if you think about that, and you think about even a $100 gift, the impact of that gift is absolutely massive. So to be able to really quantify that, because these programs are supported by community, it's all through philanthropic support. So I think that being able to really see how your gift or your donation actually just doubles, triples, quadruples over time is pretty powerful and amazing. So as I mentioned, Take a Hike started in Vancouver in the year 2000. And it's a beautiful story, really, in that, there was a teacher in the Lower Mainland who was working with youth and noticing that youth were kind of falling through the cracks, not engaging, and thought, I got to try something different. And so took a group outside. They were quite an outdoory person, took a group outside and started doing some outdoor learning and started noticing these subtle little changes and thought, okay, there's something here. I want to explore this. And happened to have a friend who was a clinician, a mental health clinician, and said, would you come along? Let's see what this is like. And immediately they started seeing these really rapid and immense changes with the youth that they were supporting. So they went back to the school district that they were working with at the time and said, look, something's here. We need to explore this. We need to invest in this. This is something that's really worth exploring. And at that time, the school district just didn't have the funds to be able to support something like that. And so this teacher said, okay, I'll start a nonprofit. And that's how Take a Hike was born. Sometimes really amazing things are born from one passionate person who just has a hunger for change and a hunger to help community. And that's really our origin story. So it's quite beautiful. But since that time, Take a Hike only had about 5 programs in the Lower Mainland for the last 15 years, but in 19 years. In 2019, we opened our first program on Vancouver Island. And since that time, Take a Hike has expanded our program capacity by 80% over the last 3 years, and it's continuing on. So this is a little bit of an old stat. It says as of September 2022, we had 11 program locations across the province. And actually just this past September, this week, we opened our newest program in Kelowna. And so really excitingly as well, I'll talk a little bit about how these programs begin, but we don't go into communities asking, do you want us? Communities, school districts hear about the support that we provide, and we have a list of school districts who have expressed interest, right? And so there's all sorts of process. It's not a quick process to open a new program in a new community. We want to think about the community's ability to support that program financially, the support of the school district, what the student need is. But Kelowna aligned in the sense that the need is there. That area is experiencing a youth suicide crisis, unlike anything that we've seen. The need is certainly there. And they're also noticing a really interesting difference from Vancouver Island, for example, which is that youth are actually dropping out a lot earlier. They're dropping out in grades 7 and 8 rather than grades 10 and 11. So in order to meet that community where they're at, Take a Hike is for the first time piloting a program that extends down to grade 8. So that program will be in Kelowna grade 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 to hopefully just connect with those youth before they disengage from the school system and before things get more difficult. And so I think that that's something that is really wonderful about Take a Hike is that we really want to meet communities where they're at in order to best serve the youth within those communities. So now we're at 12 programs. And yeah, as Kim mentioned, we're very excitedly, our vision is to take this program so that across the country, so that every youth who needs it has access to it when they need it. That takes time, that takes support, all sorts of things. But there are certainly conversations happening outside of the province right now, including in Ontario, which is another area of need that we're very excited about. So right now on the island, though, in 2019, the Nanaimo program opened. Since that time, we've also opened programs in Cowichan, Stamanis, in partnership with the Stamanis First Nation Education Society, which is our first ever Indigenous-led partnership, not with the school district, which is very exciting. We also have programs in Sooke and Saanich. So on the island, this is our largest region, really. We have Lower Mainland and interior regions as well with our organization, but Vancouver Island is our largest, and it's just an honor to be able to support the youth in this area. So these are our program locations up and down the island and a little bit about where they're located. And really, I just want to tell you about Cowichan because, this is Shawnigan Rotary. School District 79 serves the entire Cowichan Valley Regional District. This is my home community. You're likely all watching from somewhere within the Cowichan Valley today. And so we'll just get right into it. This is probably the most favorite part of my job. You can see me in the middle of this picture holding a puppy, surrounded by youth from this Cowichan program. We're up on Missachi Mountain. This is an out day for a program, right? We hop in the bus, we've got food, the whole staff team comes and they've planned some team building or some questions, conversations. We go up this mountain and we start with something called circle. So we're at the bottom. Every day, youth and Take a Hike engage in circle. It's a really important component of our program and it really sets the tone for the day. And so standing in a circle with these youth, you start with a number. So from 1 to 10, where are you physically, emotionally? Check in. And you can say pass, right? Nobody has to answer. We go around the circle and we do our check-in. Ooh, a bird just hit the window. We go around the circle and we do our check-in, and then a question is asked. And sometimes the questions are silly. It can be, would you rather have fingers for toes or toes for fingers? And it works to break the ice. But sometimes the questions are more self-reflective and kind of invite a little bit more vulnerability. And one of the questions was, how do you define success in your life? And I'm standing there with this group of youth and I'm thinking, okay, I got to have a good job. I got a good paycheck, got to drive the car. I'm kind of thinking in this way, have, healthy relationships, have all these things, my kids fed and happy and healthy. And as we go around and the first youth who responds, she just says, I wake up in the morning. That very basic need was such an important perspective shift and signaled to the whole staff team where that youth was at that day. And so when we talk about, how might we ensure equity or how might we ensure that The youth who are really struggling any particular day are able to be more fulsomely supported. Circle provides an opportunity for that, right? For youth to kind of share where they're at, and then for our staff to know, I'm going to spend a little bit more time with this person today. Can you spend a little bit more time with this group? And really working together from that individual perspective to support. But that was a really, I think we might think back to what it was like to be a young person, but it's also very different for young people these days with access to information and just the social pressures and all these things. And so to be able to be an adult in a circle with youth, sharing vulnerably about what their life experiences are like in a trusting and safe environment was pretty magical. And then we all hiked up this mountain and supported each other through that and did some team building exercises and talked and bonded. And this is really what an out day with Take a Hike is like. So once a week, youth in all of our programs get to do this. And really that is thanks to the support of the community. So this program in Cowichan opened in 2021 and welcomed 18 youth right away into that school year. So it's actually located in the city of Duncan inside the Cowichan Open Learning Co-op, which is the old Duncan Elementary School, if you're familiar with that, kind of in the Caronsmore area. And I do just want to mention quickly, this question comes up a lot, how referrals work, students from Shawnigan Lake, how do they get involved? All of School District 79's kind of alternate education is mainly in the Cowichan Valley Open Learning Co-op. So even if a youth lived in Cobble Hill or Mill Bay and was identified in their school as really being a candidate for that style of education, they would still be busing and traveling up to that kind of open learning center there in Cowichan. So we do actually have youth in Take a Hike programs in Cowichan who take a bus from Cobble Hill and come to that area. So if there's a student at Francis Kelsey, for example, who seems like they might be a good fit, they're struggling in the mainstream school system, they're experiencing some challenges outside of that, school administrators know, whether it's district principals or teachers, know that those referrals can be made, but youth can also self-refer. They can call our intake line, they can send an email, they can talk, if they're ministry involved, they can talk to their social worker, all those things. So really, it's an open referral process. There's information on our website, but I just wanted to clarify that because the Cowichan region is so huge in scope and geographical area that I think it's just important to note. So yeah, students just come from all over, even as far as Lake Cowichan to access this program. So just want to talk a little bit about our vision and how we scale, because as I mentioned, we really envision a province where all youth believe in their potential and are on their own path to success. So school districts across BC are increasingly interested and expressing interest in integrating our program. So we currently have, I think, 15 school districts in the Lower Mainland and the interior that have indicated interest in Take a Hike programs. And we have really seen unprecedented demand for Take a Hike in communities across BC. So over the past 3 years, I mentioned we've grown program capacity by 80%, really expanding to meet the needs of youth on Vancouver Island and in the interior. Right now we serve, sorry, I'll go back here. Oh, and I've messed it all up. We'll go back. Sorry, folks. The joys of Zoom, and I'm
I'll jump in and just say
simultaneously.
this is okay. It gives me a chance to reflect on what you said, and this has felt like such a conversation that I hope has ripples as it goes beyond our session today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kim. It's even as I go through this, I see such incredible alignment with Shawnigan
Oh,
Eco
I'm
Rotary with your
so
vision
excited.
and activities. And yeah, here we are. All right. You know why? It's because in typical Zoom fashion, I have a cat. You know how cats love to be on computers trying to crash my Zoom session. So I'm holding back the cat and presenting at the same time. So never gets old, never gets old. So as I was mentioning, we have 15 school districts currently asking for these programs. We're in talks across the province and outside the province about more. And we actually right now serve up to 220 youth annually across our programs. So that's in the Lower Mainland, the interior, and the Vancouver Island region. But the need is still great. In the next 3 years, we're really working to grow from 12 to 16 programs to increase our reach to more than 320 youth each year. And we are very, very, very excited to be talking about growth within and beyond BC, certainly. So none of this work, nor this growth, is really possible without our community And I think there's many ways that community can support young people in our programs. So I know that Rotarians are incredible community champions, and we really hope that you'll consider partnering with us to ensure youth in the Cowichan region have access to this mental health and academic support that they need to thrive. I really look forward to exploring ways that that can happen. I see so much potential already. But I think beyond that, word of mouth is incredibly powerful in the Cowichan Valley. And Take a Hike isn't well known. I think I jokingly mentioned that there was at one point a Facebook hiking group that made bumper stickers and it was called Take a Hike. So when I say, oh, I work with Take a Hike, most people think I'm talking about like a community hiking group, which isn't completely wrong, but quite different. But just talking to your friends, talking to people in community about what we do. Have you heard about this organization? And I think we all know youth. We all know youth who are struggling. We might have a friend whose young one is having a really hard time who doesn't know about our program. And so sometimes just talking about it and spreading word can really help to change someone's life. If you know people who are really passionate about supporting mental health initiatives in community and have the means to make a financial contribution, our programs aren't cheap. We're so incredibly grateful for the partnership of school districts. They provide in-kind support of the physical space, they provide the teacher and the youth worker. And really what our program brings in and what we fundraise to provide is that mental health clinician, all the outdoor gear, all the outdoor experiences, and transportation and often food as well as part of it. So on the island here with our 5 programs, each program costs about $350,000 to run on average, so each year. So it's certainly, we're always in need of support, but spreading the word helps immensely, not just to, gain financial support and get new partnerships, but also can really help to change a youth's life. So I personally always welcome warm handshakes, introductions, conversations, and just any connections that you think can help sustain and advance this work. So I will put my contact information up here and leave it on the screen for a little while. Please, please, please reach out to me anytime by email, by phone. I am in the Cowichan Valley. I'm absolutely always happy to meet for coffee and share more. We will have a new yearbook. We put out a yearbook every year, which has photos and stories and experiences of our program. So that's coming out in a few months and will be available on our website. And so, yeah, Kim's got the last year's, which is fantastic. And really just, I think, seeing this work in action and hearing firsthand stories from youth is always so impactful. So there's some really beautiful stories in this year's edition. So definitely follow us on social media. You can check out our website and follow along when that yearbook is printed. But I really, really do encourage anyone interested in learning more just to reach out to me anytime.
And as we wrap up the recording, we're going to be archiving this as a link at the Shawnigan Rotary Eco Club YouTube channel. And this will be a link that you can share with your colleagues, families possibly the teens can pass amongst themselves. And we, again, just feel so honored and privileged to help facilitate this message of hope. And Rotary is all about creating hope in the world. So I want to thank you, Zoe, so much for spending this time having this conversation, and most importantly, speaking from your heart in the stories of resilience and the stories of transformation that we've just walked through together. And so I just hope that more and more people will understand that this is available to them and find their way in, and especially that you grow in terms of the resources that you need, whether that's people, equipment, facility options, and outreach, and to grow your impact. So together, I believe that we can grow this hope in the world. So thank you. And I'll stop the recording now.